Today, we are comparing the FLBH LED bulb from Alla Lighting to a few other LED bulbs out on the market right now. Normally, we use this channel to promote our own Alla Lighting LED bulbs. However, for this next series of tests, our bulb may not always come out on top, but we want to show you the full analysis on what's best for your vehicle. We have set up a series of side-by-side comparisons for the qualities that are important to know when purchasing LED bulbs. These will be objective and measurable tests, so there is no biases or TV trickery here. This is bulb versus bulb, head to head. For this comparison video, we will be testing the 5 most popular LED headlight designs on the market right now. Each bulb varies in price, design and size, type of LED chip used, heat dissipation system, and their brightness. We will show you which bulbs excel in each area so that you can make a more informed choice when purchasing. To do that, we will be testing their beam pattern adjustment, light output and cutoff lines, power draw, and how well they will fit into different vehicles, a noise test, and then we will show you the final results of each test. Beam pattern adjustment test. Let's take a look at the importance of proper placement of the LED bulbs. We will start with a factory halogen bulb to see what the beam pattern should look like. We will be using the low beam housing for this test. Here is the beam pattern for a factory halogen bulb. LED bulbs use LED chips instead of filaments like your typical halogen bulb. Reflector housings were designed to create the best beam pattern for halogen bulbs specifically. In order for LED bulbs to produce the best beam pattern, they need to give off light in a similar manner as halogen bulbs. Now we are going to test bulb number 1. We are able to adjust the placement of bulb number 1 by removing the screw of the chuck, allowing us to turn the bulb inside of the housing. This bulb is not normally adjustable. However, we will do so for the purpose of this test to show you the importance of proper bulb placement. You can see the beam pattern change as we turn the bulb. This vertical orientation is the ideal position for the bulb. Now let's look at bulb number 2. Bulb number 2 is not adjustable, so we can only install it one way in the housing. Here's a look at the beam pattern. Now for bulb number 3. Bulb number 3 is also not adjustable. Let's look at the beam pattern for bulb number 3. Next, we will test bulb number 4. Bulb 4 is also adjustable if you remove the screw on the chuck of the bulb. This bulb is not normally adjustable, however, we are still able to adjust it by removing the screw. Let's twist the bulb inside of the housing to adjust the beam pattern. This vertical orientation is also the ideal placement for bulb number 4. Lastly, we will test bulb 5. Bulb 5 is adjustable by pushing down and turning. Let's take a look at the beam pattern. You can see the beam pattern changing as we adjust the bulb. This vertical orientation is also the ideal placement for bulb number 5. Vertical orientation with LED chips facing left and right is the desired placement for the two-sided LED bulbs. This is because of the radiation characteristics of the LED chips. Is LED technology okay for autos? Yes, if the bulb was designed well. As long as the LED chips sit inside of the housing as close to the original halogen bulb filament, you will have a proper beam pattern and won't blind other drivers. You can even get a bad beam pattern from a poorly designed halogen bulb filament. The bulbs on the left are factory halogen bulbs, and the one on the right is aftermarket. Some LED designs have LED chips all the way around the bulb to better match with the round halogen bulb shape. Let's take a look at the LED bulb that looks similar to the factory halogen design, but is actually quite different. This bulb does not have a very good beam pattern, and the light spills all the way to our ceiling. As you can see, it's not the technology, but rather how close to the factory filament an LED chip is designed that matters. This design is better, but it too has a lot of light spill that would be blinding to oncoming traffic. Light meter cutoff line test in projector and reflector housing. We will be measuring the amount of light that each bulb emits, as well as the color temperature of each light. For this test, consistency is key. According to the SAE guidelines, the proper placement for the headlamp during this test is 25 feet away from the aiming screen or wall. We set the light meter sensor at 21.5 inches. The ideal length a headlight should reach is 100 feet. That line should stretch from the height of the bulb to the ground over 100 feet. At 25 feet, the height of the line should be about 21.5 inches. This is the spot where you want a lot of light cast. The light meter only measures lux at a specific point and not the total lumens that are given off by each bulb. The center of our headlamp is 28.5 inches tall. According to the SAE guidelines, the cutoff line should be at the same height as the center of the headlamp. The distance from the center of the vehicle to the edge guideline is 39 inches. The distance from the guideline to the center of our light meter is also 39 inches, showing that our light meter is centered with the vehicle. The distance between the hotspots should be the same as the distance between the headlights. Here, the distance between both is 5 feet. Our first test will be the control test to test the meter using only the ambient light in the studio. It is too dark for the meter to pick up the color temperature of the ambient light, but our lux is 2.0. For headlights, there are two different types of housings: projector lens housings and reflector housings. For our first series of tests, we will be using the Honda Accord with the projector headlight housing. In projector headlight housings, the light from a bulb is reflected onto a lens that can control the distribution of light. First, let's see how a factory halogen bulb looks. We will keep the vehicles running throughout the entire test to maintain constant power source. The halogen bulb has a clear cutoff line and won't blind oncoming traffic. We've indicated where the hotspots for the halogen bulbs are with electrical tape, and we'll be measuring the other bulbs against it. The halogen bulb has a color temperature of 3,161 Kelvin and a light output of 325 lux at the center meter spot. The height of the cutoff line is about 27 inches, about 1.5 inches below the center of the headlamp. Next, we will test our first LED bulb. Like we learned in the first test, for the best beam pattern, you should install the LED bulbs vertically, with the LED chips facing left and right side. In a projector housing, you are unable to see from the outside whether or not a bulb is installed vertically because the projector is in the way. However, you can tell that the bulb is installed vertically because the pigtail of the wire in the back is hanging directly down. You can do this with LED bulbs with a similar orientation between wire and vertical LED chips. Bulb number 1 has a clear cutoff line that is about an inch higher than the halogen bulb. Bulb number 1 has a color temperature of 7,229 Kelvin and a light output of 209 lux at the center meter spot. Next is bulb number 2. Bulb 2 also has a clear cutoff line that is about 28 inches above the ground. It has a color temperature of 7,680 Kelvin and a light output of 212 lux at the center meter spot. Now we will test bulb number 3. Bulb 3 has a clear cutoff line that is slightly higher on the outside. Bulb 3 has a color temperature of 7,101 Kelvin and a light output of 116 lux at the center meter spot. Now for bulb number 4. Bulb 4 has a clear cutoff line that is about 28 inches above the ground. Bulb 4 has a color temperature of 7,067 Kelvin and a light output of 165 lux at the center meter spot. Finally, bulb 5. You are able to adjust the orientation of the light with this bulb, so we are able to make sure it is installed vertically. Bulb 5 also has a clear cutoff line that is about 28 inches off of the ground. Bulb 5 has a color temperature of 6,659 Kelvin and a light output of 477 lux at the center meter spot, the brightest of the bulbs. Here are all the bulbs together. Although some of the bulbs are not similar in design to the halogen bulbs, the projector housing is able to focus the light onto the road in front of it. However, the bulbs did not perform the same in the projector housing. If the light source was sending light off in other directions, before being corrected by the projector lens, then it will lose some of its brightness. This is why bulbs 3 and 4 did not have as high of a lux at the center meter spot, although their cutoff line was similar to the halogen bulbs. Our next test will be with the reflector headlight housing. In reflector housings, the light from a bulb is bounced off of the reflective material of the housing. Without the cutoff shield and the projector lens, the reflector housing is less forgiving than the projector housing. Let's see how the factory halogen bulb looks in this housing. We are switching from the DRL to the low beam headlights. The halogen bulb has a color temperature of 2,993 Kelvin and a light output of 244 lux at the center meter spot. The halogen bulb still has a clear cutoff line. One important aspect is where the light is coming from. The LED chip should sit in the housing at the same location and direction as the filament of a halogen bulb. If the chip is in a different spot or casting light unevenly in a different direction or has a different shape of light source in the housing from the filament of a halogen bulb, it won't have a proper beam pattern and will be blinding oncoming traffic. Next, we will test bulb number 1 in the reflector housing. We install each LED bulb vertically with the LED chips facing on the left and right side of the bulb. As you can see, in the reflector housing, the cutoff line for bulb number 1 is less distinct, and there is some light spilling above it. Bulb 1 has a color temperature of 6,742 Kelvin and a light output of 214 lux at the center meter spot. The chip for bulb 1 is 0.14 inches, 14% shallower, and 0.08 inches, 40% longer, and 0.01 inches, or 20% wider than the halogen filament, causing a less distinct cutoff line. We did not include bulb 2 in this test because it did not fit into this vehicle's housing. Now for bulb number 3. We installed bulb 3 vertically. The cutoff line for bulb 3 is also less distinct. Bulb number 3 has a color temperature of 8,090 Kelvin and a light output of 515 lux at the center meter spot. The chip for bulb 3 is 0.19 inches, 19% shallower, and 0.2 inches, or 100% longer, and 0.17 inches, or 340% wider than the halogen filament, creating a poor beam pattern. Next, we will test bulb number 4.
The cutoff line for bulb number 4 is also less distinct in the reflector housing. Bulb number 4 has a color temperature of 8,183 Kelvin and a light output of 364 lux at the center meter spot. The chip for bulb 4 is 0.14 inches, 14% shallower, and 0.08 inches, or 40% longer, and 0.13 inches, or 260% wider than the halogen filament, creating a poor beam pattern. And lastly, bulb 5. Bulb 5 has a clear cutoff line, even in the reflector housing. Bulb 5 has a color temperature of 6,552 Kelvin and a light output of 555 lux at the center meter spot. The chip for bulb 5 is 0.03 inches, 3% shallower, and 0.06 inches, or 30% longer, and 0.03 inches, or 60% wider than the halogen filament, creating a clear cutoff line. Here's how the bulbs stack up against each other. Here are the final results from the projector and reflector housing together. Some bulbs did much better in the reflector housing than the projector housing. The light meter is only recording the lux at the specific point and not the total amount of light that each bulb can generate. A projector housing can fix the direction of the light beam, but not the amount of light on that spot. A higher number with a clear cutoff line is a good indication that your light source is designed to match the housing that it is in. A higher lux with a bad cutoff line does not help you and will only blind other drivers. Color temperature is a numerical value, using the Kelvin scale, assigned to different colors of light. 6,000 Kelvin white is the ideal color temperature to increase visibility during normal driving. Lux is a measurement of the intensity of light that hits or passes through a surface, as perceived by the human eye. Power draw and heat test. In our next tests, we will measure the power draw and heat generation of each design. Typically, the brighter the bulb, the more power it will draw. A common CFL house bulb draws about 15 watts. An average flashlight draws about 35 watts. A halogen headlight bulb will draw about 55 watts, and an incandescent house bulb will draw around 60 watts. Street lights will draw about 1,000 watts. The LED bulbs we are testing range from 13 to 50 watts of power drawn. The more power the bulbs draw, the more heat it will generate. LED bulbs must dissipate some of that heat in order to have a longer lifespan. There are a few different ways LED bulbs can do that. LED bulbs can use heat sinks to create more surface area for the heat to dissipate. Some designs will use fans with a higher RPM to dissipate that heat. The fans create noise but help to dissipate the heat more efficiently. All LED bulbs need a driver to maintain operating temperature of the LEDs by reducing or increasing the power drawn. That driver also generates a large amount of heat. Some bulbs have an external driver that is separate from the LED chip in order to remove some of the heat source from the bulb itself. The heat dissipation system you choose depends on what is best for your vehicle's fitment or how bright of light you will need. Bulb number 1 has 6 CSP chips and a wide but short heatsink. It uses an external driver, but it does not have a fan. Bulb number 1 uses about 13.4 watts. We are measuring the temperature using the heat meter. The top number tells us the amount of heat the item measured is giving off. The bottom number is the highest number recorded while measuring. Bulb 1 heats up to about 231.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Bulb number 2 uses 6 CSP chips. It does not have a fan or an external driver, however, it has a very large and wide heatsink to dissipate that heat. Bulb number 2 uses about 17.7 watts. Both bulbs 1 and 2 draw less power because neither has a fan. Without the fan, they also have less total light output. Bulb 2 heats up to about 209.8 degrees. Bulb number 3 has 2 COB chips, has a thinner heatsink, but it uses a fan in order to dissipate that heat. Bulb number 3 uses about 19 watts. Bulb 3 is able to draw more power with the help of a fan to dissipate that heat. Bulb 3 heats up to about 203.9 degrees. Bulb number 4 uses 2 Cree chips. It has a longer body and a thinner heatsink. although it is wider than bulb number 3. It also uses a fan to dissipate the heat, as well as an external driver. Bulb number 4 uses about 24 watts. We can expect even more total light output than previous bulbs, and heats up to about 152.9 degrees. Bulb 5 uses 2 high illumination customized chips, has a short and thin heatsink, but uses a high RPM dual ball bearing fan to dissipate the heat, as well as an external driver. Bulb 5 uses about 46.6 watts. Based on the amount of power it consumes, it is no surprise that bulb number 5 also has the highest light output. And heats up to about 232.6 degrees. In this test, you might notice another important factor, total light output, with its unit lumens. Some get lumens confused with lux. You can imagine lumens as the total weight of a table, and lux as the weight left on a single spot under one of its many legs. Total lumens can be tested using the integrating sphere, while lux can be tested with a light meter. A bulb with the most lumens may not have the highest light quality. It depends on if it has been designed to be used in the housing as the original bulb. With more power draw, bulb number 3 and 4 should have more lumens than bulb number 1 and 2, but in our meter test, they got less lux at the center meter spot due to the light source design differences from the halogen bulb. The amount of heat produced by each bulb is important depending on the type of chip the bulb uses. Some LED chips are able to run hotter depending on what their manufactured junction temperature is. Junction temperature is the highest operating temperature of the actual semiconductor in the LED chip. For example, a CSP1919 LED chip from Lattice Power has junction temperature of 275 degrees Fahrenheit, 135 degrees Celsius. Theoretically, you can add more power to the bulb to increase its light output, as long as the operating temperature stays well below the junction temperature. The design's junction temperature is mainly responsible for its limited lifespan. The best method depends on your personal preference or what will fit your vehicle better. Fit test. While each of these bulbs will fit into most vehicles on the market, with the different sized heatsinks, fans, and drivers, it is best to check with your vehicle's headlight housing to see if the bulbs will fit. Here is an example of a shallow, slim fan housing in a 2007 Toyota Prius that requires a short bulb with a thin base. Next is an example of a short fan housing in a 2002 Chevy Tahoe that requires a short bulb. And here is the shallow housing of a 2003 Silverado that requires an even shorter bulb. For today, we're going to be using a 2018 Highlander that is an off-center headlight housing and uses a dust cap. Bulbs with wider heatsinks will not fit into the off-centered housing, and longer bulbs will have an issue fitting with the dust cap. Bulb 1 is one of the shortest designs that we have tested, with a distance of chuck to base of 1.2 inches. It has a round heatsink with a diameter of 1.5 inches and an external driver that is 0.9 by 1.8 inches. Bulb number 1 uses a wide heatsink to transfer heat away. It is good for shallow but wide housings. Because of that, we are not able to fit bulb 1 into the off-centered housing. Let's try bulb number 2. The distance from chuck to base for bulb number 2 is 1.6 inches, with a rectangular Duralumin heatsink that is 1.3 by 2 inches. Bulb 2 has an even wider heatsink. This design has the largest heatsink among these models. This is why it is most important to check the clearance of your vehicle's housings before purchasing. The wider heatsink helps bulb number 2 transfer heat away. However, it cannot fit into the off-centered housing. Bulb number 3 is a longer bulb that has a thinner base and fan. It is good for a narrow but deep housing. The distance from chuck to base for bulb number 3 is 1.75 inches with an aluminum body. It uses a dual ball fan, and the diameter of the base is 1.4 inches. Bulb 3 fits into the housing, however, the bulb sticks out and we would not be able to close the dust cover. Bulb 4 is also a long bulb with a narrow base and fan. It is also good for a narrow but deep housing. The distance from chuck to base for bulb number 4 is 1.8 inches with an aluminum body. It also uses a dual turbo fan that has a base of 1.5 inches. It also uses an external driver that is 1.1 by 1.8 inches long. It cannot fit into the off-centered housing. It too sticks out and we would not be able to attach the dust cover. Bulb 5 has a small driver that must fit inside of the dust cover in order for it to fit properly. And the distance from chuck to base for bulb number 5 is 1.2 inches, with an aviation aluminum heatsink. It uses a dual ball fan that has a base of 1.2 inches and has an external driver that is 1.1 by 1.8 inches long. This is the smallest among these 5 bulbs, which is good when you have a very tight fitting housing like our test vehicle. The bulb fits into the housing. Let's see if the driver will too. We are able to fit both the bulb and the driver into the housing and are still able to close the dust cover. The dust cover does not fit on perfectly and you can see where the bulb is pushing on it. However, the dust cover is still sealed. Noise level test. For our next test, we will see how much noise is being produced by each bulb. The most common way for a fan to run quieter is for it to run at a lower RPM. However, at a lower RPM, while you will have less heat and less power draw, you will have less light output. They are a trade-off. We will not be testing the halogen bulb or bulbs 1 or 2 since they do not have fans. LED bulbs without fans won't have any noise, but they will not have as much total light output as the bulbs with fans. For this test, we will be using a dB or decibel meter to measure the amount of sound coming from the bulbs. For reference, a whisper is about 20 decibels, while a rock concert is about 100 decibels or more. We will measure the sound level from the side of the bulb and the back of the bulb near the fan. Bulb 3 has a reading of about 29 to 31 decibels from the side. And 32 to 33 decibels from the back. Bulb 4 has a reading of about 40 to 42 decibels from the side. And about 29 to 32 decibels from the back. And bulb 5 has a reading of about 33 to 34 decibels from the side and about 37 to 38 decibels from the back. Compared to the noise of an engine, 40 decibels is not very much. However, you will still hear the bulb when the engine is off. You should decide what decibel is appropriate for you and whether you value a quieter bulb or a brighter one. Road test. Our first test will be using the same Honda Civic with the projector housing that we used in the light meter test. The first half will be the parking lot test. Let's start with the factory halogen bulb. We will compare the data that we gathered in the previous test with the real-world examples. Here is what the halogen bulb looks like with its warmer color temperature and light output of 325 lux that we measured in the light meter test. You can see that the halogen bulb has a clear cutoff line. Let's take a look at the first LED design. Bulb 1 has a much cooler color temperature than the halogen bulb, making the light appear bluer. Bulb 1 has a clear cutoff line with the projector housing, similar to the halogen bulbs. Here is the second LED design. Bulb 2 has the coolest color temperature of the bulbs and a similar light output lux as bulb number 1. The bluer a light is, the dimmer it will appear. Bulb 2 has a clear cutoff line in the projector housing. Now for design number 3. Bulb 3 has a slightly warmer color temperature than 1 or 2, however, it has the lowest light output lux in the projector housing due to its design. Not all of its light output is being utilized in order to control its cutoff line. Here is design number 4. While brighter than bulb number 3, bulb 4 also has a low light output lux in the projector housing because of its design. And finally, the 5th LED design. Bulb 5 has the closest color temperature to 6000 K white and the brightest light output lux. The closer the color temperature is to 6000 K white, the brighter the light will appear. Here are all of the bulbs together. Now we will test them on an open street. Again, we will start with the factory halogen bulb. Here you can see the brightness of the bulb compared to its power draw. It does not make any noise since it does not have a fan. The halogen bulb in the projector housing does not blind oncoming traffic. Let's take a look at the first LED design. Bulb 1 has the lowest power draw as well as one of the lowest light output lux. You can see the beam pattern is not as wide or as far as the halogen bulbs. The LED designs do not blind oncoming traffic either, since the projector housing controls the cutoff line. Here is the second LED design. Bulb 2 has a slightly greater power draw and light output lux as bulb number 1. Now for design number 3. Bulb 3 has a higher power draw and uses a fan but has the lowest light output lux in the projector housing. This is due to not all of its light output being used in order to control its cutoff line. Here is design number 4. Bulb 4 has more of a power draw and more noise from a stronger fan, but it too has a lower light output lux in the projector housing due to its design. And finally, the 5th LED design. Bulb 5 has the highest power draw and fan noise, which is why it has the highest light output lux. Bulb 5 also has a wider beam pattern and covers more distance than the halogen bulb. Due to its design being similar to the halogen bulbs, it can still produce a higher light output lux in the projector housing. Here are all 5 bulbs on the street test in the projector housing. Now we are going to do the parking lot test with the same vehicle with the reflector housings that we used in the light meter test. We are starting with the factory halogen bulb to compare the LED designs against. You can see the halogen bulb has a warmer color temperature. It still has a clear cutoff line, despite being in the reflector housing that has less control over the beam pattern. Now for the first LED design. Bulb 1 has a cooler color temperature and is not as bright as a halogen bulb. Its cutoff line also is not as clear as the halogens. We will skip to the third design since the second one does not fit into this vehicle's housing. The light output lux for bulb number 3 is much higher in the reflector housing and has a cooler color temperature, making it appear bluer. It does not have a clear cutoff line. Now for the fourth LED design. Bulb 4 also has a much higher light output lux in the reflector housing. It also has a cooler color temperature, making bulb number 4 appear dimmer despite the higher lux. The cutoff line for bulb number 4 is not very clear. Finally, the fifth LED design. Bulb 5 still has the closest color temperature to 6000K white and the highest light output lux in the reflector housing. However, it still has a clear cutoff line since the design is similar to the factory halogens. Here's all 5 in the reflector housing parking lot test. Now for the street test in the reflector housing, starting with the factory halogen bulb. The factory halogen bulb has a clear cutoff line and is not blinding oncoming traffic. Now the first LED design. Bulb 1 is not as bright as a halogen bulb, mostly because it does not draw that much power. It does not have a clear cutoff line and there is some light spill towards the oncoming traffic. Here is the third LED design since we are still not able to use the second one in this vehicle's housing. The light output lux more closely matches its power draw and fan noise while in the reflector housing. However, you can see it has a less clear cutoff line caused by the 153% difference in design from the halogen bulb. This design can be dangerous for oncoming traffic. Now we will test the fourth design. Bulb 4 also performs much better in the reflector housing with a much higher light output lux than in the projector housing with the second highest power draw. Without the clear cutoff line, caused by the 105% average difference in design from the halogen bulb, Bulb 4 can also be dangerous for oncoming traffic. And finally, the fifth LED design. You can see that with the most powerful fan and the highest power draw, Bulb 5 has the highest light output lux in the reflector housing, as well as the widest beam pattern. With a clear cutoff line, Bulb 5 won't be blinding oncoming traffic. This is how the bulbs compare to each other in the reflector housing and how they will appear to oncoming traffic. You can see the difference in size and design for each LED bulb to the halogen bulb. Let's see how the bulbs compare to each other in the different housings, with the projector results on the left and the reflector housing results on the right. As you can see, the projector lens can control the focus of light for each bulb. However, this can cut down on a light's output lux. You can also still see some dark spots from some of the bulbs while they're in the projector housing. Without the projector lens, some lights in the reflector housing have much more wasted light, which causes less light where you need it and can also be blinding to oncoming traffic. The ideal bulb would be the brightest bulb that also has a proper beam pattern. Final results. Let's see how each design did in the different tests. As you can see, We showed that the best placement for two-sided LED designs is with a vertical orientation to get the proper beam pattern. Some bulbs were brighter than others, and bulbs with a similar design and size with halogen bulbs performed well with both the projector and reflector housings. Some bulbs were able to dissipate their heat better, or had quieter fans, while others were able to fit better into different types of headlight housings. If you have a bulb that we did not test today, let us know in the comments below. We hope that these tests will help you determine the bulb that best fits your needs.
If there are any other videos you'd like to see, please let us know in the comments below. Please check out our YouTube channel for more videos like our comparison videos, product videos, and our installation videos on how to install your own LED light bulbs. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications for new videos.
And check out the links below for our website, social media, and Amazon page.
Thanks for watching.